Hey, good morning, folks. It's Friday, November 28th, the day after Thanksgiving, sometimes known as Black Friday here in the United States, when all the retailers, wholesalers catering to the Christmas consumer market hope to turn a profit in the last month of the year. No, I'm not out at Costco or Walmart or Staples, or probably more appropriately in my case, on Etsy or eBay or Amazon, draining my wallet. This morning, just a little while ago, I finished my Avro Biplane, a kit that I was building with Charlie Mack as part of a buddy build. The kit was gifted to both of us. We each got one from Tom Schrei, a 1/48 scale Avro Biplane 1911 or Avro Biplane D type. The particular manufacturer was Lifelike Products. The origin somewhere in the early 1960s, and Charlie and I think this was the first one that was done. Subsequently, I think 3 other companies released this kit in the 70s or so, but it's truly a vintage kit. It was a real blast with some adventures along the way to build. And today will be the final reveal. Just a little bit about the airplane. This is from the really enormous instruction sheet that came in the plastic baggie with the kit. And it talks a little bit about a little brief history of the Avro biplane. The ambition of Avro was to produce airplanes at moderate cost with ease of maintenance and transportation. The latter was attained by making the wings in sections and bolting them together. The outer sections were hinged at the real spar to facilitate warping of the wing's trailing edges downwards. That explains no ailerons, thereby preserving lateral control. This was effected by cables running from the control wheel on the steering column to the tops of the outer rear struts. The Avro biplane was seen with a variety of tail designs, and the open fuselage framework was eventually covered with fabric, sized and varnished. And our model has the fabric covering over the fuselage in the rear. A reliable engine made by the Green Engine Company was fitted, water-cooled by a radiator fitted under the upper wing leading edge. A few of the later versions of this biplane moved the radiators to a dual radiator on the inner spars next to the fuselage. Behind this was provisions to carry a passenger in front of the pilot. Okay, that's a brief history. I looked on Wikipedia. I think a grand total of 7 of these biplanes were made in various configurations, and I think the first plane made its appearance in 1911. Okay, a little bit about the build. I'm going to read from the instructions because I thought this was a hoot. It says, important, follow the directions and paint the parts when stated. This will enable you to avoid difficult painting after the model is assembled. Well, the part about the painting is true, but I would be very cautious about following the directions as written. Here is the blow-up diagram, which I used for reference. There was quite a bit of verbiage in here for the size of the instructions about the order and when to assemble things. I didn't follow that at all. I think that would have been a recipe for disaster in certain cases. I'm going to show you, before we go to the final reveal, I'm going to show you just a little bit about the parts, just a few parts that I didn't use and the reasons why. So let's go to that now, and then we'll go to the final reveal. Okay. Those are the rear landing gear struts. They are way too short by probably 8, 9, 10 millimeters, significant given their small size. So I found that out at the end, but that wasn't a big deal. I just fashioned some slightly longer rear struts for the landing gear out of toothpicks, painted them, whittled them down, painted them, sized them, put them on. That is the head of the pilot figure, which isn't bad, but I wanted to jazz up my pilot figure a little bit with a better head, so I did a head swap. Of course, where the pilot sits, you can barely see him anyway, so I'm not sure it was worth the effort, but I did it. There are the two radiator hoses, primed in black, still attached to a part of the sprue. I was given a forewarning by Charlie that they're a bit hinky to put in, and I thought I'd do something a little easier, and I'm glad I did. I used some very thin lead wire for my radiator hoses. And finally, an add to the model, 1/16" outer diameter, I think, brass tube, this is the first one I cut, which was too short, which was placed across the fuselage behind the pilot to thread through control cables. Otherwise, that would have been a real chore. I think I spoke of that in one of my previous videos. Okay, that being said, let's go to the final reveal. So here it is, the Avro Biplane D-Type, or 1911. I had a lot of fun building this kit. I'm really glad it was a buddy build, and I had a partner in Charlie across the country, but always available via phone call or text or email to give me some heads up and tips because there were, a few little twists and turns along the way to get this thing fitted. But generally speaking, it was a joy to build, lots of fun. 1/48 scale, 51 or 52 parts, of which I used most of them. I think I've gone through what I replaced and changed. It actually, all in all, with a few exceptions, fits together pretty darn well for an old vintage kit. And I really enjoyed it. It's something that's a pretty cool build. I've got an extra pilot. I'm not sure he could actually sit up there without busting through the wood frame. I don't know if the fabric or the canvas would be strong enough to hold him, but that's where he is. The original pilot figure is tucked in there. I think you can see him, although I did change the head to an aftermarket. There you can see the radiator hanging down from the top wing. Those are the lead wire hoses I used. The rigging was done. Something I learned, a tip I got from Trey Patterson at Trey's Models, a very easy and efficient, all things considered, easy and efficient way to rig a biplane, which is drill in the holes all the way through the tops and bottom wings where the wires or cables go, thread it through from the top or bottom, secure it with a drop of CA glue, let that dry, then pull it through the corresponding hole on the bottom wing, hold it in place with the clamp tweezers, again a little drop of CA glue, let everything dry. And once you get into the rhythm, I've found, although it takes a fair amount of prep work to locate and drill all the holes, the actual rigging process is far faster than the touch-up process afterwards of, just sort of touching up and filling in all the holes you've created. I tried to do a pretty good job on the top wing, which is the most visible. I can still see a few indentations there. But all in all, I think it's a great way to do rigging. And with flexible line, it's a very easy way. You don't have to sit there and be holding the line in place as you're trying to attach it to the other endpoint and praying that the glue, the CA glue or whatever will catch before you release the tweezers. Yeah. So that was that process. Powered by just an enormous 4-cylinder, 35 horsepower, inline, water-cooled engine. I think the top speed was around 45, 50 miles per hour. A fair amount of rigging because there are 3 full wing bays on each side. The innermost set of struts attach both the bottom wing to the top wing and then the wing assembly to the fuselage. That's the critical component of getting everything squared up. Do that first. Absolutely make sure that it's square, you've got the angles correctly. The jig I bought, again, thanks to a tip from Charlie, made that process not that hard. And then it was a question after it dried, being the cabane / inner wing struts, then fitting in, of course, you've now got to bring it down the fuselage with those struts onto the lower wing, let that all dry. Then the next day, I test fitted the top wing, attached that, let that dry overnight, and then started putting in the struts, pair by pair, alternating left side, right side, starting with the inside and working my way out. All in all, fairly straightforward. Again, as I said, cleanup and touching up took longer than the actual rigging. Control lines were pretty easy, all in all. Yeah, here it is. So since this base doesn't rotate, I'll snap a few pictures here at the end and include them. And hopefully this won't be a 9 or 10 hour upload, although you won't experience any of that. So again, thanks to Tom Schrei. Thank you, Tom, for this wonderful gift. And by the way, one of the other kits that you gave me in that big package is going to be the plane I'm working on for my Advent group build. But I'll address that in my next video. And Charlie, thanks, buddy. Thanks for all your help. This was a lot of fun. Let's do it again. Okay, folks. Thanks. Take care. For those of you in the United States, enjoy the rest. Hope you're enjoying the halfway point through the long Thanksgiving weekend. Take care.